EBS Podcast presents.
Whoa, are we in an airport right now? I don't think so. We're in the EBS studio, about to get going and kick off an episode of the EBS podcast, Just Go. In Just Go, we're going to be talking to EBS students who have done the Erasmus program, and let's talk about their trials and tribulations and what they went through and how it's made them a better person overall and what they got out of the experience. But more importantly, let's stop talking and let's just go. Hi guys, back again. This is Caleb, EBS student, repping this clothing. We're here for Rico. What is this, the third episode? Yeah, third episode. We're going strong so far, and I'm going to be a special episode for you all today. We're actually in the studio with 3 guests instead of just 2. We also have a foreigner for once, besides myself. We have Jeff Jarvis, who is a professor at the Monash University in Australia. And then we have 2 EBS students who also went to Australia to study under the program Jeff teaches. A little background about the land down under, if I would say. Monash is the 75th ranked university in the world, following Stanford, Harvard, all the American classics, I guess. And then the 21st ranked school in the world for internationality. So I guess because I'm kind of diving into the deep end, I guess. Jeff, would you like to give me a little bit of background about yourself and what brings you to this part of the world?
Yeah, sure. Terry Homikus, everyone, even though it's not morning, but I'll say that anyway. Look, great to be in the program. Great initiative for EBS. Monash was the first Australian university to set up an exchange with Estonia.
Yeah.
And it was strongly supported by the Australian government and also the Estonian government, because Australia and Estonia have very, very close links through history. In fact, the first non-British migrants to come out to Australia were people from the Baltic states. So we took about 35,000 of them after World War II. And we've had some very famous, successful Estonians down there. So for any Estonian who's been to Australia, you'll see there's Esti Maya in Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, and quite a strong community down there right now. So we set the exchange up way back in the early 2000s, actually. And so it's been going strong since then. And basically the students from EBS have the opportunity to come down and study in the graduate tourism program. And I must say there, tourism is not just about being a travel agent, it's more about the management side of one of the world's fastest growing industries. So replace the word tourism, don't even think of leisure, think of the global mobility of people around the world. In fact, here in Estonia, the industry is worth just over 2 billion euros. A year, or just under 2 billion euros, I should say, and growing quite rapidly, and approximately accounting for about 15% of the GDP of Estonia.
And that's okay, because I live here, but I know nothing about the financial side. You're saying that's 2.4 billion for just the talent industry, I guess?
Well, in Estonia, it's just under 2 billion in terms of the revenue coming in. And as I said, the industry has been sort of growing from strength to strength. Yeah. So for our Australian students coming to Monash, they love looking at how your industry is actually developing. And we have a regular program of bringing Monash students here. And they do units in your MBA program, and they also do a special consultancy project with the Estonian Tourism Board while they're actually here, which I supervise.
I know that Talent is also known a lot for the startup community and whatnot, and I've also been described by many Australians, by the way. Every Australian I know is somehow managing something or is the leader of something. Like my comedy manager is an Australian. It's very weird.
So you work... yeah.
You know Lewis says around?
Absolutely, I know Lewis.
Yeah.
We're a small Aussie community here, mate.
Oh, yeah, you run into him all the time. But do you say that the Monash is looking at Estonia as a sort of case study so that you can expand it to the world then?
Absolutely. Because look, if you look at Australia as a destination, we were locked away from global tourism up until the mid-1980s because it was just too expensive to get down there.
Yeah.
In fact, in the late 70s, Lonely Planet, you might have heard of that as a guidebook. The author, Tony Wheeler, basically said the cheapest way to get to Australia, fly to Singapore and catch a ship to Australia, and that was the late 70s. So really, with the advent of change of technology, jumbo jets, the economies of scale, our industry kicked off with Crocodile Dundee and Paul Hogan. You'd know that, being an American.
Yeah.
But Estonia opened about 5 years later in terms of breaking away from the Iron Curtain, so to speak.
Yeah.
Australia had an economic sort of barrier in terms of travel. So both our industries are quite new. And we bring our students here to look at a case study of how your industry here has developed, and particularly flipping from post-communism to tourism, which is a very capitalistic, individualistic industry. And of course, we've got wonderful case studies here with the Viru Hotel, with the listening room, and organised tourism coming through in tourist in those days in the Soviet period. So the students love it here, looking at the trends, and they're doing some really important research here. A couple of programs. One was on digital nomads. That was last year's team. This year's teams are looking at the Asian image of Estonia by analysing some blogs, and also the impact of hosts and Airbnb, which of course is one of the fastest growing sectors of accommodation in the Estonian tourism industry at the moment, and also giving a real platform for everyone in this room, to potentially get access to additional income in the international tourism sector.
Yeah. Oh, sounds fantastic. So much information. You are one of the most informative guests I've had on so far. Now, granted, all of them have been like undergrad students. I know. I think we had Alex was overgrad. Did you graduate? I don't know. Regardless, you're the most intelligent person I've had in this room so far. So
well, thank you very much.
Yeah, just knowledgeable. But you fine ladies are also you guys are EBS alumni then for the master's program, and you both have gone to Australia for how many semesters each?
It was one semester only.
Just one semester?
Yeah. Yes.
And overall, as I ask this for everyone who comes on, when you chose to go to Australia, what was the main defining factor? Did you do Erasmus in your undergrad as well?
No, I didn't, and actually I even didn't expect I will do some exchange. It actually came totally unexpected, and the image of Australia, it's so far away, and I didn't know like how can I manage it. It was like was the best part of like, can I manage it to go there? Yeah. Like Erasmus, as it's basically every second can go there, but not to Australia. Did
you feel it was just I'm just gonna try it, or were you just not even in the mindset currently like I'm going to do it? Let's just try it and let's experience this for once.
And I knew actually it will be like it will be very will have positive kind of value to my career, and I knew I need to do this exchange to learn something new, to learn new country culture, also English skills. This is like one of the moments why I decided to go there.
Okay, so you went there for more personal growth versus academic growth, or you were just trying to
both? Still, if you have in your resume exchange program, or employees, as me as manager also, I look at these people in a different angle. I see they if they decided to go somewhere by themselves, it means they are brave people. They don't they feel comfortable in some changes when changes are like happening. Like they are more professional. They definitely know English better and maybe more languages than only one, and etc. So I knew it will add value, like academic and then from my portfolio, resume, etc.
So this was a massive career booster for you then.
Yes.
By the way, as much as this is an interview, this is also a conversation. So if either time you guys want to jump in.
I was just going to say that it's something we find in Australia with the flip side of the students who come here to EBS is that when they go for the job interview, it's their first question. Yeah, because it shows that, wow, they haven't just gone on exchange to, America or Canada or England or France or Germany. They've gone to something and done something a bit different. And particularly now with globalization and being able for the management to say, I can send you to India tomorrow and I know you're going to survive. And so particularly where they find it really is a career accelerator to come to Estonia and do the Estonia program here for the Australian and the Monash students.
I know as an American, here, if I mention I'm an American, I'm not saying doors open for me, but stuff is very more lubricated, if is a better word to use. Things can happen more easily. Is Australia just one of those places that, they just open doors immediately for people to have access to?
Look, I think Australia has a culture for the Estonians coming down. We talk a lot, okay?
Yeah.
So that's the hardest thing with Estonians. Sometimes Estonians can be a little bit shy, somewhat. But Australians are generally quite open. I mean, the girls can probably speak more about their experience down there in terms of being EBS students. But Australia is a country of migrants. Okay, my family came over in the 1950s from British India, and so I'm first generation Aussie. Right, and so we all come from somewhere else, and we're really interested in people who come from elsewhere. So it's quite a slightly different mindset to sometimes you might get here in other parts of the world.
Yeah, when I remember my first day in Australia, when I came to cafeteria and I ordered my first cappuccino, the guy asked like, "How are you?" Like I'm like, "Oh, that's I'm okay." But how is your day? I'm like, is he asking me or someone next to me? We didn't expect like the people are asking like here. And actually one of the first feedback I received when I came back to work, like, "Marina, you are so open. You're asking so many questions. You can easily do the coffee machine talks with the people." It's like.
So you've perfected this. So you're now just an expert at small talk, is what you're saying. Just immediate small talk.
I'm much better than before.
For you, Dasha, is it the same? Do you have the same experience that you're now more versed in, I guess, what we say in the West, the small talk and whatnot, and that kind of business mentality where you need to give more than you actually should if you're an Estonian?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to say because I don't think that Australia has changed me as much as probably had as big impact as it was on Marina since I've been living abroad for over 11 years already. So it wasn't my first, exchange studies or living abroad experience.
So you just love this country so much you just keep coming back.
Well, I'm not originally from Estonia. I'm from Belarus, but I've been living in Estonia only for over 6 years. But I also lived in China for 4 years. So but definitely Australia added something to what I already had in me, and the decision to go there was mainly. Sort of, I experienced Asia a lot. I experienced Europe, and I wanted to see another part of the world. So Australia was one of still is obviously one of the most faraway corners where you can go. So I wanted to see yet another culture or experience yet another culture, add it to my portfolio, and definitely. The experience of living there, even for a short time, only 5 months, it definitely helps you to open up a little bit more and become more shy, less shy. And one of the reasons for me, what helped me a lot, is not just the attitude of Australians towards small talk, and from that perspective, but more what Jeff told, that this is the country of immigrants. So unlike in Estonia, where you can easily describe how the average person in the streets would look like, in Australia, at least in Melbourne, you cannot. The diversity is so big, and people are coming from all over the world. You are not anymore, here, for instance, for me being foreigner, I still see some sort of, I feel the gap between me and Estonian people, although it's rather small. Whereas in Australia, you can be whoever you want, you can look however you like, and this feeling of freedom changes something in you, definitely.
We're actually the biggest second Greek city in the world after Athens, would you believe? So we sort of fight with Thessalonica at the moment. So, and look, when I went to school, I've got lots of Italian mates, so I do talk with my hands. Look wherever the cameras are, you can see that.
Oh, yeah, you got. So we're on this one. You guys are on that one.
Okay, but look, it is very multicultural, and Melbourne is the most multicultural city in Australia. Something like 46% of the population were either born overseas or had a parent born overseas.
Okay, so really, So even though people are Australian, they're just still mixed up like we are in the States. A massive melting pot.
Bit different. I mean, in Australia, you can actually be an Italian Australian, and you have your Italian identity and your Australian identity, and they sit next to each other, and it's quite cool to have dual identities. And a lot of us have dual citizenship, so you can sort of shift around a lot. So it might be a little bit different than being in the States. But I just wanted to jump in there and add, and from the tourism industry perspective, Australia is number one for high yield tourism as rated by the United Nations World Tourism Organization.
Mm-hmm.
So because we are so far away, we have to work really hard, particularly on our marketing and our product development, to get people down there. Mm-hmm. So, and give extra incentive and sort of think outside the box. Yeah. Okay, so if you look globally in tourism, we've just had Thomas Cook go bust. Okay, we've had O'Leary, the head of Ryanair, basically saying the package tourism model is dead. Well, we never had package tourism in Australia because it's too far away. The business model doesn't work. So the world is moving towards independent travel, and that's where Australia is number one. And so a lot of the opportunities for students, we've had ex-EBS alumni who've sort of been associated with the program and set up their own businesses here. How do we deal with independent tourists versus the package market? And that's one of the big questions going forward, and a big business opportunity. And I always notice when the EBS students come down to Australia, they've really got that entrepreneurial flair, I should say, and they're really saying, well, how about a business idea with that, a business idea with that? So there's a unique opportunity by coming on the program to be exposed to our industry and how we have to work. Like, for example, we've got a thing called the working holiday visa. Okay, that was some research we did. We're basically saying that, look, a lot of young people around the world want to come to Australia, but they've got no money. So we said, well, okay, we'll give you the money. We'll give you a job. Yeah. Here's a 1 year work visa in Australia. We're about to extend it up to 35, hopefully for Estonians as well. So that's part of a tourism strategy.
You mean 35 years ability?
35 years. Yeah. It currently ends at about 31, but we're hoping to extend it up to 35.
As in year, like age?
Age.
Oh, okay. I was like, you're giving out 35-year visas. That's a bit of a ballsy move.
Well, if depending on how you work the program, it can now extend to 3-year visas, but generally it's 1, and then particularly if you do regional work. Oh, okay. Because these guys spend a lot of money in the regional areas while they're traveling around. Oh, okay. But I said that's what I mean. That's an example of thinking outside the box for the tourism industry or the travel industry. What I tend to find when I come to Europe is it's still very much associated. Number one, every Estonian thinks of tourism, they think of sun. Okay.
Well, I mean, we miss it for like 6 months out of the year. So.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. It's hard not to think about it.
But I can tell you now, one of the fastest growing tourism destinations in the region is northern Finland in winter. And I was speaking to someone with a Hurtigruten, which is the boat going up the Norwegian coast, and they're booked out over winter for the Northern Lights tours. So tourism doesn't necessarily need to be linked to essentially sun. Okay, and I said once again, tourism doesn't have to be linked to leisure. Leisure is a small yield component of the overall.
It's just one of those things that everyone just assumes is the major one.
Tourism is the most misunderstood industry in the world.
Yeah. I didn't look you up on LinkedIn because I wanted to meet you in person. But how long have you been in the field of
tourism?
Tourism, that's what you.
Yeah, look. Basically, I started my in a previous life. I used to work in advertising. Okay. So I was an advertising executive. I was involved in a small startup of an advertising agency, and then I went to do my MBA, which I did partially in Sweden. And my thesis was actually on, would you believe, the backpacker market. Now, every time I say the backpacker market, people normally laugh. But if backpackers were a country in Australia, they'd be the number 2 yielding market in terms of $4.2 billion a year. China's number 1, $10 billion. And if backpackers were a country, they'd be more valuable than the British and the Americans to the Australian tourism economy.
And those backpackers are mainly made up of Europeans, or just anybody really just coming through Australia on the
primarily work visa? European on the working holiday visa, because unfortunately you Americans don't get enough leave. But it's led by the Europeans, a lot of Canadians travelling as well, and increasing numbers actually of the Asian market is now starting to merge. So it's youth travel, so primarily, but we define youth up to 35. Yeah. Okay. So
very, very lively country. We're like, you're 22, you're done with the youth. Let's go work for 60 years.
Well, once again, in our society, typically, I'm just talking about the Australian society here, that if you don't go travelling and work after finishing your degree, you're not really going to make it. So employers will actually look at you taking a year out as a positive. So it's a career enhancement.
So you look at the gap year as something valuable.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was suggesting the gap year to my father. I was thinking about, wherever I wanted to go. He's like, no, it's going to ruin your career. You'll never go back to school and whatnot.
Look, the big consultancy companies in Australia, I've had friends who've been in the employment or the recruitment side there, and they score the CVs with a higher score if you've had a year. And typically, go to London right now, go up to a pub, ask for a beer, it'll be an Aussie giving it to you generally. That experience, particularly in your early 20s, is seen as incredibly valuable because you need to be exposed to the world. Increasingly, young Aussies are going to Asia as well. But as I said, we are pretty much a nation of travellers, but it is valued as a career enhancement, as is the study abroad experience that we're talking about.
Would you say it's one or the other, or would you? I mean, of course, if you comboed the two on a resume, you look even golden.
Absolutely.
But is it seen as one of? Is it as you do your own solo thing, or you go on a study abroad? Those are both equally valid.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, we're in the age of globalisation. You need to be aware of other cultures.
Yeah.
Okay, Australia's we primarily sell a lot of our product into Asia and around the world. We're an export nation. So you have to know these markets. If you don't know these markets, we can't just sell. We've only got 24 million people. I know that sounds a lot for Estonians, but when you even look at Ukraine, it's got 44 million. So we're about half the size or just under half of Ukraine. So we have to export. So we've got to educate our young people about the world and travelling and working overseas, but also increasingly with study abroad programs. So in our university, in the undergraduate scheme, everyone, particularly in the Faculty of Arts, where we're based, gets a free 2-week tour to either Italy, Indonesia, China or India as part of their program, completely paid for by the university. It's called the Global Immersion Guarantee, just to expose young people to the rest of the world.
Okay. And that goes for all students of the university?
All students in the Faculty of Arts at Monash have the opportunity of going there, and it's completely paid for by the university.
Okay.
But that's not available on the exchange program.
Well, I was going to say, we're about to have a boosted number of people going to Australia all the way. I would like to ask you guys more questions as well, but there was one question on top that I was thinking of. For Estonians, because this will caveat into the next one, for Estonians, what's the one thing that you think that, because you teach at both universities, obviously, and so you can see them, the Estonians in the foreign land, the Aussies in the foreign land. Is there one thing in particular that they both take away from, or they bring to the table and they take away with?
I think the Estonians, once again, are generally quite reserved, and once they come into Australia, you see them actually opening up by the end of their experience. Okay, and they also, because the university and my program is very international, I've got students from Colombia, from China, from Hong Kong, from India, from Russia, all sitting in the same classroom. So they get a really international network. So it really does broaden their mind, and it's great to see that sort of change. So certainly social side and the cultural side, cultural awareness is important. And of course, the knowledge that we convey in the course. For the Australians coming over here too, it's almost the same thing. It's understanding the culture. And the beauty of being a exchange student in Estonia, I mean, I always think Estonia is like an onion. You peel one layer and then there's another layer. Yeah. And you peel that layer and then there's another layer. So you can't get deep into a country unless you have an elongated period of stay. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just a tourist. You're not a traveller. You're not really understanding the culture. And so the program we offer here for the Australians at EBS gives that opportunity. And of course, I have to say that the EBS support network here is fabulous, with the student council, getting our students out to various events, and having the buddy system and meeting Estonians and learning about which is an incredibly unique culture in the days of globalization, because Estonians preserve their culture. Yeah. No. And of course, then we've also got the Russian culture too here as well, which is equally interesting for our Australian students.
Do you guys feel the same way? Is that the main takeaway, that you were just more personally developed out of anything coming away from your experience in Australia? Or, I mean, is there something that Jeff didn't hint on that you as an individual took away from that?
I mean, a lot. It's first of all, I think all my friends now, they are from EBS and from Monash University as well, and they have a lot of friends across the world now, and also I can easily travel even more easily than before. And also this, again, as I mentioned before, you speak a bit different English that you speak being here in Estonia. All the specific words, all the specific accents you have. Also, what good coffee mean now.
Australians are crazy about coffee. So.
Yeah,
Melbournians particular.
Oh, there's just Is it like a coffee snob kind of culture, or is like they just want a good cup of joe?
We basically killed off Starbucks, if that says anything, almost.
Oh yeah, the Starbucks.
It didn't quite work in Melbourne.
No.
So the local coffee shop is very important in the morning, and having breakfasts out.
Yeah.
At 5 a.m. basically. All the shops are opening at 5 a.m., which
breakfast.
is also, and you learn to be more patient, let's say, because you can stay in a line for 1 hour to wait for your breakfast, which is very typical in Australia, but not typical here. Here people cannot wait at all, and you are so patient, and people asking, why you are so patient? Like, because there's sun is shining, people are lovely around. By the way, sun was also one of the reasons why we went to Australia, and it was such a disappointment when in May it was 0 degrees in Melbourne.
Not for me. I didn't experience that.
In June
You
as
have-
well, because it's winter is coming in this opposite. During our summer, there's winter in Australia. So in June it was like totally cold.
I'll be honest, I'm just actually shook. You said that there was Melbourne, it was 0 degrees.
Yes.
And
Yeah, look, we've got sort of, we're on the same level as Nice in terms of if we were in the Northern Hemisphere. So we've got a bit more of a European climate compared. We actually are more of the most European city in Australia. So yeah, we do have winters. We don't really get any snow. But look, typically with the exchange program, you arrive at the end of summer, so it'll probably be about 30 odd degrees when you arrive, so some hot weather. But then the temperature in June can be at 0 at night or 1 or 2 at night, depending how cold it gets. But it doesn't really get super cold. It doesn't get Estonian cold.
I'm not
in
going to need to
Australia.
bring my parka if I'm coming by. I'll leave the Helly Hansen at home.
Yeah.
For you, Dasha, as well, what was anything else of the bigger takeaway that was just talking about?
I would add, on top of what was already discussed, I would add also sort of becoming more independent. Although again, for me that wasn't my key experience, because I have had that before already. But in Australia, getting your life settled as an exchange student who just came, or work and travel, however you are coming, in whichever role you are coming to Australia, if you are not just a short-term visitor, it's quite difficult to sort of settle everything, to search for apartment, to just to understand the way how everything works in Australia, because it's completely different from what we are used to here. So definitely you are becoming much stronger. Your sort of survival skills, I would say, are getting much stronger, and also you start appreciating what you have back at home a lot. Simply the internet, for instance. I think that for every Estonian who went to Australia and came back to Estonia appreciates our internet and the availability and speed and price and everything 100 times more.
You guys have a sea cable out there, or
Look,
satellite?
I don't know what we're doing out there, basically. But look, it's we're a long way behind Estonia in a lot of ways. So for a lot of our students, they will say it's like coming to the future, coming over here, because everything is so done digitally, it's done easily. And remember, we're only dealing with 500,000 people in Thailand, versus Melbourne's about 5 million.
Okay,
so it's a much bigger city. What Dasha was actually saying is that there are opportunities to stay on campus, I should say, but most students like to get an apartment in the city centre, and then they have to go into the private rental market, as generally our students do when they come they come here. So that's a fairly common aspect. I should say with the program that students will do 2 subjects there, which is worth 30 ECTS points. One's tourism industry and marketing, where we look at the size of the industry and some basic introduction marketing, and we go out and they do a marketing audit of a small SME. It might be a winery, it might be a spa resort, it might be a day tour company along those lines. in that unit, we also have a paid trip to Sydney. So we take all the students to Sydney for a couple of nights where we have industry seminars. So one of the things about Monash is we actually bring in industry leaders, which is a great example with EBS because you do the same thing.
Yeah.
So the industry leaders will come in and speak to the students. We have an opportunity to do one-on-one conversations. And of
so
course,
your industry leader is speaking directly to the students.
Absolutely.
On a one-on-one basis.
Absolutely. So the industry leaders from Tourism Australia, from the sort of some of the key marketing bodies, they all come in and they give presentations primarily in Sydney, but also we have a program in Melbourne as well. But so that trip is actually included, that study tour to Sydney, and students can stay on if they actually want. Then students do a unit which is called Applied Industry Research and Practice, where we look at the role of research in forming decisions in the tourism industry. Historically, tourism's been a bit of let's make it up as we go industry, but now it's becoming much more professional and focused on pure research. And we give the students the research skills so they can actually go out and do consultancy projects. So that's how it actually works, the structure of the program, typically starting with the marketing unit at the start or the middle of March and then finishing at the middle of June or so when it's cold.
Do you find that most of your students, both in EBS and in Monash, do they end up continuing with the Estonian students? The Estonian students will stay in Estonia, or they'll go back to Australia, or vice versa, and they mainly stick with the tourism field overall?
Look, the tourism field is going to influence everywhere. Like, for example, we were discussing TransferWise, right?
Yeah.
Is now launching their tourism product where you can have their travel card. So Visa and MasterCard are making a lot of money out of tourism.
Yeah.
Okay. So whatever industry you're in, even if you're organising a conference in pharmaceuticals or working in the telecommunications side of things, you might organise a retreat or an event, which might be a team building event. That essentially comes under tourism. Conferences, big topic here in Estonia at the moment. What are we going to do with Linnahall? It's a huge opportunity for developing the convention industry to develop counter-seasonal tourism here. So get people here from now between October and say in March. So that will actually really benefit all the hotels by having a conference venue developed. So tourism will affect all your areas, first of all. As for the Australian students staying here, we've had a couple of students who've taken the opportunity to stay here and work for a year. One student did a program, Barbara, in digital marketing. But most of the students will go back to Australia. A number of them will actually go to London and to get a job in London. For a year or so to further enhance their CV. On the flip side, I'm sure these guys can tell you a bit more about their friends who've been down to Australia. We're finding a number of Estonian students are wanting to stay in Australia. And once again, they've got this great entrepreneurial mindset. Much more so than in Australia, I have to say. So they tend to sometimes go and be sponsored there to work in businesses. So we've probably had maybe about 4 or 5 students continue on living in Australia, and then they end up getting sponsorship, and then some of them even gone pathways to get an Australian passport.
So to add here on top, I'm for pharmaceuticals, but I'm organizing a lot of conferences in Baltic countries, and not only, and we have a lot of work trips. So it's also about the tourism, and the girl who went with me to Australia, she stayed there, and she's still there. And she's working now as a brand manager for one cosmetic company. So
this program just seems like it's the key to success after I'm hearing these stories. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think what I always try and do with my Australian students here is give them the opportunity, and it's up really them to take that opportunity. And the beauty of Estonia is it's a small destination. If you're really motivated, you can really sort of make things happen here. You've talked about some of we've got a small Australian community here that plays cricket, by the way, but they're quite successful over here because they're motivated, they're entrepreneurial. So it's a great place for young Aussies to be based if they want to get into the startup scene or develop their own company in whatever field. So I think for me as a lecturer and running the program, it's just putting the opportunity in front of people, and then it's up to them if they want to take it or not.
And you're saying that this program sort of makes or how do I say, enriches people's lives, or makes the lives better. Actually, the real sort of example from my career or work life is that till now, my manager whenever he introduces me to any new people, one of the first things that he loves to bring up is that, oh, and she lived in Australia. And this is so important that, this is like a brand, if you had the opportunity to stay in Australia even for a short time, it will be really very valuable for your work.
Yes, for me as well. First of all, one of the biggest achievements I really wanted to get after, I think, 6 months I came back, or 8 months, I got a new project I was kind of dreaming about. I got my own team and promotion, which is very important. And also as well when I'm like doing some interviews or want to promote myself somehow, and I'm also telling like, yeah, I did part of my MBA in Australia, and you see how people perception is like is changing. They're getting more kinda sophisticated, and they have a different look at you.
Just a complete elevation of status overall is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that happens the flip side as well.
Yeah.
For example, one of our old alumni who came here to Estonia was working with the United Nations World Tourism Organization in Madrid. She got a job there virtually after coming from EBS.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other people who've been working with UNESCO. We've got a professor in tourism in Japan now. So as I said, by doing an exchange program and taking the opportunities that are presented to you, it just accelerates your career.
Yeah.
And as I said, for us in Australia, it's kind of normal. But I know here in Estonia, there's a bit more pressure to stay in Estonia and get a job and not take that step out. But if you take that step out, you'll end up jumping two levels of your peers that maybe might have stayed within whatever country it is.
Most certainly. I don't want to be completely derailing you, but I have to ask the students again about your experiences there. And I ask every episode, I ask this one. When I first moved here, I had this fantasy of what life was going to be like. As I just moved here when I was 18, I was literally 3 months outside of high school, not even knowing how the real world operated at all. And then I was smacked in the face with a brick of real life. So my reality quickly crushed and stuff. Did you guys have anything the same experience as that? And then if so, what was the outcome that you developed from this? Was it a difficult time switching cultures and then coming back? Did it overall live up to the expectations you had set forth when you got on the plane to Australia?
So you mean when we came to Australia first? Or?
Yeah. Did the reality that you built up in your head, or the expectations, do the expectations you built up meet the reality that you faced?
First of all, I have this mindset. I do not set any expectations, but I was thinking I know English again. But for 2 weeks, people didn't get me at all. They asked me like many times, Marina, what do you mean? Marina, what did you say? Like a lot of many times. And then I was thinking, okay, nice. But also I was thinking it's gonna be sun 24/7, and it was like time to time so cold. And also the university, it is huge. It has many campuses. I didn't expect, especially after EBS, which is so small, I didn't expect to see myself in such a big university, and I didn't expect. But actually, it took me only like, and also the distances. Again, after Estonia, you do not expect to travel to university for 1 hour, but I think 2-3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And
you were just adjusted it so rapidly.
Yeah, and you met so many cool people. You met so many different people, and you somehow created a new family within a couple of weeks. And
from all the people I talked to who go to the Erasmus program, and even in the few Erasmus programs I attend, or the parties and stuff, I don't know anyone there because they're all international. I'm very segregated to the Estonian side of the school due to my program. Was it the same way with you, that you were just with all internationals because of the structure of the city and how diverse it is, or was it more you had like the Estonian side, or sorry, would you have like an Australian side of the school and then you had all the internationals?
Well, my program is very, very international. So we've got students from all over the world, but of course we've got Australians there as well.
Yes, and we have also people. I have friends from Australia and Australians, local people.
But in my year or semester when I took the course, I think there were only 6 Australians and the total number of students was 70 or 80. So Australians are the minority, and I don't think that they tend to stay together. But still, it's not such a big part of the class, so they sort of blend in. Everyone is communicating. But I would say that other nations, such as Indians or especially Chinese, they are sticking together. So I would say what I personally, so not in at Monash, but you can maybe that's not correct or doesn't represent the reality. But I would say that to me there was Asian part of Monash, and then all the rest. So that's how I saw the division.
Yeah, if you look at Australia in terms of, Australia's had 24, 25 years of constant economic growth, and so these recessions that you talk about in Europe and North America didn't happen to us. But that's very much linked in because we've realised that we're very closely linked to Asia. So Australia and Asia have a strong partnership now. And we spoke about China, that the Chinese market in 2011 was below the British, was our highest yielding market. And China tourism has just boomed everywhere, and also in Australia. So that actually reflects we've got a lot of demand from some Chinese students who want to come down and study in Australia.
You mean that the demands for Chinese to leave and to visit more, or for vice versa for Australians?
Both, and also come to learn about the industry, because if you go on bestmasters.com, which is like an independent website, we're ranked number 2 for tourism studies in the world. So we're quite a highly ranked program in that way, because we have this unique balance between the academic world and the industry side, and we really focus on practical study options. And we have a large study tours as well. So for example, we take our students on a field school to Fiji, and we're also running a program here in February where we're bringing them to Estonia, going to Latvia, and then we go to a global tourism fair called ITB Berlin, which has like 160,000 delegates to it, which is like the biggest tourism think tank in the world, and our students get to participate in that. That's within the Monash program. The EBS option is primarily students come down for 1 semester. We have had students have extended to 2 semesters if they requested that, but the majority of students come down just for 1 semester and do a couple of units with the students. As for the Australians, it does vary year by year. But as I said, we look at the global tourism industry and see where the growth's coming from. For example, at the moment, we've got a lot of Colombians. Yeah. Okay. Because Colombia has been nominated by their government. Tourism has been nominated as a growth pillar. So all of a sudden they're coming. A lot of Mexicans are now coming into the market because there's similar issues there, and also government scholarships for them the government's paying them to come to study in Australia. So you see a diversity occurring all around the world. But yes, look, certainly the Australians typically make up roughly about somewhere around 20 to 25% of the course, and then the rest is international.
Well then, that's a lot taken. So just so I understand the structure of this program, you are teaching here as a guest lecturer.
Yep. Visiting scholar. So I'm a visiting scholar here, and I do a short program. I think it's 3 ECTS points, probably someone's yours, in the Masters of Marketing. So it's a tourism marketing unit. Okay. So every September, October, I'll come over and I'll deliver that unit for EBS. And at the same time, we'll bring our students over, and I'm actually co-supervising their consultancy projects that they're doing here.
Okay. So so I guess for Erasmus, when people go, they're just on their own and they go to every university, but when you have your Australians coming in to Estonia, you're as a total group all together collectively going. And does it occur the same way then? If that's true, do you bring like the Estonians with you back?
They probably want to come on the plane with me tonight, but I'm not sure about that. But look, certainly when the EBS students come into Monash, I do have a sort of special session for them to just to sort of brief them what's actually sort of going on and explain to them that this is how the exchange works. And in fact, we have to say the research we've done is that when our Australian students come to study at Monash, the reason they choose Monash over other universities and our competitors, which is also the main one's the University of Queensland, is because of the Estonia program. So the Australian students they choose Monash to come to Estonia and have this program because it's a unique where they can do MBA units and a real life management consultancy experience here, supervised by myself. they're going to be staying a bit longer, finishing off their projects, but we have sort of expert meetings with them here with the industry at the same time.
So they're there. So no, in both sides, no one's being left out dry, and that everyone's got a good support network.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, a great question. Not to put you on the spot here, Jeff, but when you first landed, you did your sessions with Jeff, did you feel as if you were all taken care of, or were you just like, I'm lost?
Sure, we did. Jeff was a great support. I think that it started already here in Estonia. So once I decided that I would like to go to Australia for a semester, then we had a few meetings with Jeff where he helped from academic side and also how to apply and so on and so forth, and also from the living side, so how to prepare for life in Australia. But what is more is that also Monash provides sort of there is this community. I'll give you another example, is that when Australian students are coming here to Estonia, then Jeff always gives the contacts of people who live in Estonia who went, who previously went to Monash University on exchange. So it means that, of course, So we can help them to find apartments. We can help them, first weeks to adapt a little bit to living in Estonia, and same goes for Australia. So when we got there, I'm sure from Marina, you had the same experience. We already had contacts of a few Australian people who previously went to Estonia or were planning to go to Estonia after our exchange semester, and they were also eager to help, be it take us by car somewhere or show around where we can shop for some home stuff that we would need for the very beginning. So this the great network of people who either already been on that exchange or are planning to go, this is what helps a lot.
Correct.
Look, I mean, the great thing about working in the tourism industry is just one big family. So it's certain people who work in tourism, they've got a different personality than working in other industries. They're pretty open, they're pretty friendly. We're all part of the team. And particularly with the Estonia-Australia exchange program, we've had about 50 students vice versa on exchange already, and it's like a little exclusive club. And the students will always go out and help each other if there's any sort of tips with our internal alumni program. And as I said, we've got some pretty heavy hitters who went through the program maybe 10 years ago, and I have the opportunity, and they will actually come back and speak to students when they meet them if they're here, or particularly if they go to the big tourism conferences in ITB Berlin. Okay. They're always happy to ask how the Estonia program's going. Yeah.
So it's a real gem of the program we have, and available for all EBS students, by the way.
Yes, look, it's primarily master's students.
Oh, sorry,
final year of undergraduate students we're looking at for next year.
Okay.
Because it is a master's program and there's certain criteria to get in. But if EBS students are interested, they should certainly speak to the team at the international department here. It's really only offered from that period from March till June. So that's the time to sort of focus. Students are able to come early if they want. We encourage them to come earlier. You might want to come and watch, because it's the Australian summer.
Yeah.
So you can come and enjoy the summer. You might want to come and watch the tennis. Australian Open Tennis is in Melbourne, one of our big tourism events down there. The other thing I should say, I don't think these guys did it, but it is the opportunity, and some EBS students do it, to work while they're there, because you get 20 hours a week work rights. And some students, and if you work in a cafe in Australia, you're probably going to get $20 an hour just working in a simple coffee shop.
And another great opportunity that I personally sort of took advantage of is traveling. Even during the semester, during those few months, you have quite a few weeks which are free from lectures. So you have opportunity to travel around the region or even around Australia. Plus, if you already go to that part of the world, it's also worth exploring some countries or islands nearby that you wouldn't otherwise go to. So I personally went to Vanuatu, a place where otherwise I think I wouldn't ever go to, because it's pretty difficult to get there, especially from Estonia. And also after that I did a really big sort of long 2 months traveling around Southeast Asia. So it's great opportunity also, not only that you stay in Melbourne, for instance, and spend all the time in Melbourne, but you also discover other parts of Australia, and you also have opportunity even for a week, just to fly out to some Fiji, Vanuatu,
Bali's very close and very cheap to go to down that way.
Bali's your guys' Cancun, right?
Yes, I do. I apologise sometimes. About 1 million Australians a year go to Bali, would you believe? It's like the cheapest destination you can go to.
So also from my side, this is like really unique experience, and also what is important, I know a lot of master students who are doing this program in EBS. They are doing it kind of in the evenings, and they already work, and they have full-time job, and this was also my case. And I was thinking like, who gonna let me go to Australia for like 4 or 5 months? And I just went to my manager. I told them, look, there is like such kind of opportunity, and what do you think? Can I go? So and I got kind of long vacation, and it's actually easy manageable. You just need to start to talk to the people and just go and ask, and actually managers are happy to let people go and to learn.
All right, well, I got the time tap from Rico a minute ago. So that's kind of we're getting to hit the end of the show. But I like closing out the show with one piece of advice you would give someone who's planning on doing the program or just thinking about the program. Start with you, Jeff. Why, from a professor standpoint, is the ultimate reason that they should do this program?
For Estonians, look, we've got a really long and strong relationship between Australia and Estonia. It's really unique. Your current president, her auntie and uncle are Aussies, and she comes down to Sydney a bit. So we've got this really unique opportunity, particularly for Estonians who are looking to scale business ideas. A number have come down and seen the opportunities with 24 million people and looked at maybe how they can get involved in business there. So it's a great way to look at a different part of the world. And we're more than happy to welcome more EBS students down to Monash, because they always perform very well. Other opportunity, a number actually go on to the working holiday visa, so they can then stay another year and work and continue their time down in that region. Yeah.
Dasha, do you have one piece of advice?
Why to go?
Yeah, why to go? What's the ultimate reason about attending the program?
You are not gonna come back the same person, so you're gonna definitely change. And I have met quite many people who went on the same exchange program, and I haven't heard even from one of them that it wasn't worth it. So everyone has their own experiences, but I think that there is not even one person who wouldn't love this experience. There will be a lot of adventures, new friendships, discoveries, and it will you will grow as a person.
I think that's a very elegant way to put it. Thank you. And I'll give you the final word.
As far as I was asking people where you want to go to travel, what is your dream destinations, and always Australia is in like top 5, I would say. Like many people want to go to Australia, and this is brilliant opportunity to go to Australia and to experience this country.
That's awesome. All right, then I will do the sign out, I guess. All right, guys, this has been episode 3 of the EBS Erasmus podcast, Just Go, with Jeff, Dasha, and Marli. How do I say? Marina. I apologize for anyone who has the same name. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.